On day one of the lockdown, the number of new coronavirus cases in Victoria's cluster is encouragingly low. But the search is on for scores of people who failed to check in at high-risk exposure sites. Just 4 new cases have emerged in the past 24 hours, all of them linked to known cases. That takes the total in this outbreak to 30. They come after a record number of tests, almost 47,500. But authorities are especially concerned about the potential spread of the virus at Sporting Globe in Mordialloc on Sunday night and at these other sites, Paran's Three Monkeys Bar and Somewhere Bar on Saturday night into Sunday morning, the Palace Hotel in South Melbourne and the Local in Port Melbourne, both last Friday afternoon. The outbreak has broken through much of the state's vaccine hesitancy, and now the rollout is including Victorians over 40. The rush is on. Jess Longbottom begins our coverage.
Victoria's back to lockdown life, but this time it's all about queuing, both for tests and vaccines.
Took 3 hours to get tested, so this is easy.
There's now more than 120 exposure sites, a supermarket in Yarraville, one of the latest, and there's 4 new cases of COVID-19, all connected to existing cases.
Of course, 4 is better than 10. It is not over yet. We could get 10 tomorrow, we could get 20 tomorrow.
One of them caught the virus when they attended the Sporting Globe in Mordialloc on Sunday with a friend who was a positive case. That and 4 other drinking venues in Melbourne's inner south are now the main focus of contact tracers.
There are places where we expect to have seen significant numbers of people in very close proximity, dancing, singing and doing what they do.
Authorities say just a few dozen signed in using QR codes, but hundreds were actually at the venues.
If you were there, please come forward so we can get you tested.
160 Defence Force personnel are also on the way to Victoria, doubling the number of officers checking that positive cases and up to 15,000 close contacts are staying home.
I want to again thank the Commonwealth for their efforts in supporting Victoria in any way that we need.
So here we are again, and some say it didn't have to be this way. Victoria's venue sign-in system has been plagued by issues and was only rolled out to a uniform QR code check-in system today. And then there's the contact tracing, which critics say is still not up to scratch.
Why is Victoria the only state that's gone through 4 hard lockdowns? It's not something in the water, it's not something in the air. It's something that in Victoria we're not quite getting right compared to other states.
I think the contact tracers have been doing a fantastic job during this cluster. There is no way that any group of contact tracers could be able to be on top of 10,000 primary and secondary contacts.
What's not helping, authorities say one of the cases at the start of this cluster was symptomatic and in the community for 12 days before getting tested.
It can be just a tickle in the throat. You have to work on the assumption that it's COVID, get that negative test.
Those 6 months of relative freedom now feel like a world away. Jessica Longbottom, ABC News, Melbourne.
For better or worse, Victorians are now getting familiar with lockdown life. Heading into this weekend, plans have been put on hold, lives disrupted, while some are once again reaching out to help. Dana Morse has the story.
It's a sadly familiar sight as the state enters lockdown 4. Shops are shuttered and plans are cancelled as Victoria bunkers down for the next 7 days. Marie and Kevin were supposed to be getting married tomorrow after their wedding was postponed last year.
We've lost a lot of money having to postpone twice now.
With their flowers already delivered, they had to get creative to make up some of the losses.
We decided, well, let's just, pull up on the side of the road, make a sign, and let's just try and sell them off and make a little bit more money back.
They're planning to reschedule, but some won't get the chance. The family of a boy who drowned whilst on school camp last week were denied an exemption to hold a full-size funeral, despite being in Warrnambool, hundreds of kilometres away from any exposure sites.
Every parent's worst nightmare, but in terms of exemptions, those are calls for public health.
The return to restrictions has taken a toll on mental health, with Beyond Blue seeing an increase in calls as the COVID case numbers climb.
It's been incredibly distressing for Victorians heading into another lockdown again.
Supermarkets have reintroduced purchase limits for toilet paper after panic buying saw shelves stripped bare. And a crowd had to be moved on from Flinders Street Station last night, where they were protesting the decision to lock down. But in dark times, these Sikhs are a ray of hope. They'll spend lockdown helping out those who need it most.
It gives me so much peaceful for my inner self as well. To serving to the needy people is very important for us.
They're cooking and delivering over 600 meals tonight, but they're expecting demand to almost double by tomorrow.
During the last lockdown, we were delivering around 900 meals every day. They are so thankful for all this service.
A silver lining in difficult times. Dana Morse, ABC News, Melbourne.
Of course, the difference between this lockdown and previous ones is that getting a jab is one of the reasons we can leave the house. And as we've seen, plenty of people have taken up that option. Nicole Asher is at a vaccination hub tonight at the Royal Exhibition Buildings in Carlton. Nicole, what were the scenes like there today?
Well, now it's looking a little bit quiet here, but today there have been lines here as well as at vaccination clinics and hubs across the state. We're told some people waited 4 or more hours to get a vaccine, and in parts of Gippsland we heard that somebody turned up with a thermos and a camp chair knowing that they might be in for a little bit of a wait. And that's just for people in that 50 plus category after the AstraZeneca jab. For people in that 40 to 49 category, there have been long waits on the phone lines, and we're told that some people have given up on those phone lines and decided to just try their luck and turn up. But here's Alika Rismal with more.
A long line of 40-somethings joining the over 50s for the jab. Thousands queued for their appointments, while others, who couldn't get through to the booking hotline, took matters into their own hands.
I decided to just turn up at the showgrounds and hope that I'd get through. I waited 3 hours and eventually got the jab, so yay!
But even a booking didn't guarantee a jab.
Sorry, we can't find you in the system. Come back tomorrow. It's just so frustrating. People want to have the vaccine and they just can't.
But thousands did, including the acting Premier and the opposition leader.
Perfect.
Today's long lines were a far cry from the empty seats last week. With people aged 40 to 49 asked to book, there was a flood of calls to the hotline.
We had 77,000 calls in the space of 15 minutes. It did cause a few challenges for our colleagues at Telstra.
300 extra staff were brought in to help as the phones melted down.
Please, if you can't get through, I'm sorry, but if you could possibly call back in the afternoon.
But a centralised online booking system is weeks away.
We do not want to see people randomly queuing outside of buildings in order to try and get a vaccine.
Walk-ins at mass hubs are still open for people over 50 to receive the AstraZeneca jab. Experts emphasise it's effective and safe, and doctors now know the best treatment for the extremely rare blood clotting side effect.
People are much more aware of it, hospitals are much more aware of it. So the mortality rate, we've only had 1 death in Australia, and although that's unfortunate, that 1 death, the mortality rate is very low, so 30 cases with 1 death.
And that's out of more than 2 million AstraZeneca doses and rising. Victoria's lockdown providing the jolt to get the jab.
We have decent supply at this point in time to do at least double the numbers that we've been doing in recent weeks.
I hope we're on track for the end of the year. We can do it.
It's a healthy dose of optimism. Zalika Rismal, ABC News, Melbourne.
And the outbreak here has not only prompted a sudden rush on vaccinations, record people lining up here in Melbourne, but right around the country. More than 4 million doses have been administered. Only a fraction of adults have had both shots, making them fully vaccinated. As political reporter Jane Norman explains, the situation here could prompt further changes to the national rollout.
It's 2 months behind schedule, but the government's chalking this up as a milestone.
In the next 24 hours, we'll pass 4 million Australians who've been vaccinated.
Not quite. 4 million Australians have received a COVID-19 vaccine. 2 doses are required though, and only 500,000 adults have received both.
Just 2% of the Australian population has been fully vaccinated.
The Chief Medical Officer says that's because of the lag time between the doses. Anyone who's received AstraZeneca has to wait 12 weeks.
Zero protection with no dose, very good protection with the first dose, and then from next week we'll be starting to see those second doses really rolling out.
But mounting pressure over the pace and progress of the program has put the government on the defensive.
You said there's no rush for weeks and weeks and weeks. You said
That's
there's
false.
no rush. We talked about it on this program.
That's false.
And it's not false. You said it on our program
No,
many
that's not
times.
something I have ever said.
He may not have said it, but the Prime Minister has.
It's not a race, it's not a competition.
Several times.
It's not a race, it's not a competition.
Greg Hunt was just trying to rewrite history.
The latest COVID outbreak, it appears, has injected a much-needed sense of urgency. This time last week, more than 101,000 doses were administered nationwide, including 26,000 in Victoria. Yesterday, as the state was plunged into lockdown, a record number of Australians got a shot. 124,000 across the country, driven by a near doubling of doses in Victoria, 41,000 in that state alone.
The strongest reason is to avoid a lottery, to avoid the lottery of death.
With community transmission in Victoria, the risk of illness and even death has increased. Medical experts are now considering urgent changes to the vaccine rollout, possibly releasing more supplies of Pfizer currently in reserve and even expanding access to the AstraZeneca jab to get more people vaccinated more quickly. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
It might be billed as just a week, but for some workers and small businesses, the lockdown here is terrifying. It's their first without crucial lifelines like JobKeeper. And industry is calling for more help. Amelia Terzon reports.
For casual workers, another Victorian lockdown means no work and no pay.
I don't know when my next shift will be. I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from. I don't know where I'm going to pay my rent from.
500,000 Victorians are employed casually and many survive week to week.
I'm just trying to figure out what the contingency plan is and what I'm going to do next and how I'm going to survive.
Bella Drummond's boss would like to help her out, but this lockdown there's no JobKeeper and no rental relief, and shutting down for a week means she misses out on $50,000 in revenue.
Just really frustrated, furious actually. I just cannot believe that we're here again for the fourth time.
While economists say that a circuit breaker lockdown is cheaper than letting the virus run rampant, they estimate Victoria's economy will lose out on $1.3 billion for 1 week alone.
Any lockdown from here is more costly to businesses and workers than what it was when the JobKeeper program was in play.
With this now the fourth time that businesses here have been put into hibernation, many were expecting a support package for them in tandem with state lockdown orders. And industry groups are livid that nothing's been announced yet.
After 15 months of having COVID, there's still no contingency plans in place.
We'll be providing support, a package for businesses, and we'll be releasing that in coming days. We're doing work right at this moment.
The federal government isn't talking specific support packages yet. Businesses like this suburban printing press want wage subsidies brought back if the lockdown drags on.
Because the last thing we want to do is A, lay people off, or B, ask people to take holidays when they really don't need them or want them.
A precarious situation already felt by casual workers who've got nothing to do but wait.
Just waiting and worrying, basically. Probably not much else. Not much else I can do.
Amelia Terzon, ABC News, Melbourne.